Let's be real, there are high-stakes NFL drama stories. And then there's this. A fifth-round pick. A billionaire owner. A defiant GM. And at the center of it all, Shedeur Sanders, the most talked-about rookie in the league, without even starting a regular season game. Welcome to the Cleveland Browns soap opera, where egos clash, reputations hang by a thread, and one miscalculated wrist flex could cost someone their job.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Now, rewind the tape. The 2025 NFL draft rolls around, and every talking head on every network is running their mouth about which quarterback is going to be the steal of the draft. But while mock drafts spiral and teams overthink their futures, GM Andrew Berry is sitting in his war room, staring down a name he knows he shouldn't pick. Not because Shedeur Sanders isn't good, not because he doesn't believe in him, but because his boss, owner Jimmy Haslam, explicitly told him not to. And that's where this story turns. Because Andrew Berry doesn't fold. He picks Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round anyway. Just like that. Boom. No warning. No soft rollout. He knows he just poked the bear, but he doesn't care. The pick is in. The deed is done. And chaos? Oh, it's brewing. From that moment forward, the Browns front office isn't just managing a team. They're managing a civil war. And you better believe it starts heating up the second Shedeur steps on the field in preseason, and looks like he's been doing this since birth. 2 drives. 2 touchdowns. Poise like a vet. Footwork like a ballet dancer. Arm like a cannon. And that calm? You can't teach that. Suddenly, all those he's just Deion's son start to age like milk in the sun. And you know who's watching this unfold from the luxury box with a clenched jaw and a blank stare? Jimmy Haslam. Because for him, this isn't just a draft pick he didn't want. This is a challenge to his authority. A GM going rogue? That's one thing. A GM going rogue and turning out to be right? That's war. And here's where it gets juicy. Word starts to leak that Haslam didn't just disagree with the pick. He hated it. Said it would bring too much media, too much noise. Claimed Shedeur was Hollywood and didn't fit the Browns' grinded-out DNA. But Andrew Berry? He saw something else. He saw a player who wasn't scared of the spotlight. Someone with command, charisma, and a chip on his shoulder. A leader, a builder, a future. And now every single time Shedeur takes the field, Berry's gamble pays off a little more. The sideline interactions between the two. You can tell Berry's not just protecting a rookie. He's invested. You don't stake your job on someone unless you believe they're worth going down with. Meanwhile, Haslam's camp starts leaking stories to the press. He's not ready. He's not disciplined. He's just a social media quarterback. All the classic playbook moves to try and undercut a rising star. But it doesn't work. Because Shedeur doesn't play that game. He stays quiet. Lets the wrist do the flexing. And fans? They eat it up. Suddenly, every Browns jersey store is sold out of number 5. Kids are mimicking the wrist flex in the backyard. Social media is flooded with highlight edits of Shedeur's preseason drives. National analysts start comparing his poise to Brady, his movement to Mahomes. Even Stephen A. Smith is screaming into a camera about how Shedeur's being held back for political reasons. And Dylan Gabriel? Poor guy. He's still trying to find his rhythm while half the stadium is chanting, Shedeur. Shedeur. Now this isn't a trash Gabriel. He's a solid prospect. But solid doesn't stand a chance next to spectacle. Especially not when that spectacle is backed up with results. And now that Haslam's golden boy is throwing picks and fumbling snaps, the pressure is mounting. Game after game, Haslam watches his carefully constructed plan unravel. And finally, according to the whispers circling the league, the gloves come off. Reports begin surfacing that Haslam is furious. Not just annoyed, threatening. And not at Shedeur, but at Berry. Sources close to the team start saying Haslam wants Berry gone if Shedeur doesn't pan out. That drafting him against direct orders was career suicide. Let that sink in. You've got an NFL GM being threatened with termination for making the most exciting pick the franchise has had in years, all because it bruised the owner's ego. And that's where this stops being a football story and becomes a power play. Because on one side, you've got an owner obsessed with control, reputation, and hierarchy. And on the other, a GM who went with his gut, trusted the tape, and picked a kid who refuses to lose. Now every snap, every throw, every clean pocket Shedeur steps into, it all means something bigger. It's not just about yards. It's about jobs, about authority, about pride, and maybe, just maybe, about the future of how NFL franchises are run. Because if Barry's right, and every place so far says he is, then what happens to Haslam's credibility? How does an owner justify nuking a GM who just found the team's most magnetic quarterback since Bernie Kosar? And if Barry isn't right, if Shedeur flames out and the pressure eats him alive, then Haslam gets to say, "I told you so," and Barry's out faster than you can say depth chart. But here's the thing, Shedeur hasn't given anyone a reason to doubt him yet. Every snap he gets, he maximizes. He makes the right reads. He leads the huddle like he's been in the league 5 years. And his teammates? They love him. You can see it. They celebrate harder when he scores. They dap him up different. That's not just chemistry. That's buy-in. And nothing terrifies an insecure front office more than a locker room rallying around the guy they tried to bury. So now, we've got the perfect storm. A rookie who's rising faster than the franchise can contain him. A GM whose career is tied to that rocket. And an owner who's trying to slam the brakes on a story that's already gone national. The question now, who gives in first? Because Jimmy Haslam can only threaten for so long. If Shedeur keeps bawling, if the fans keep chanting, if the media keeps applying pressure, he's going to have to choose. His pride or his franchise's future. And Andrew Barry? He's not blinking. Because he knows exactly what this is. This isn't about Shedeur Sanders anymore. This is about who runs the Cleveland Browns. And right now, that answer is still unfolding. On every drive, every snap, every flex. Because when you strip back the headlines, the viral clips, and the hot takes, what we're really watching in Cleveland is a slow-burn power implosion. And Shedeur Sanders is right at the center of it. This isn't just about a 5th-round draft pick exceeding expectations. This is about legacy, reputation, the NFL's dirty little secret, that sometimes the front office is playing politics harder than it's playing football. And now it's all unraveling, live and in HD. Let's talk about what's happening behind the scenes, because that's where this story really explodes. After Barry went rogue and drafted Shedeur, there was already tension in the air. But once Shedeur stepped on that field and delivered under pressure, that tension turned into panic. Meetings started getting longer. Sideline conversations got tighter. The vibe around camp shifted. Suddenly, the quarterback battle wasn't just about performance. It was about positioning. Not on the field. In the building. Word is, Haslam started asking questions. Who approved this pick? Who signed off on the reps he's getting in practice? Why is this kid doing more interviews than the actual starter? Why are fans buying his jersey before he's even named QB2? And that last question? That one stung. Because nothing burns an NFL owner quite like being upstaged by their own rookie. Especially one they never wanted. Now, let's get into the locker room. Players aren't blind. They see what's happening. They see the energy when Shedeur's on the field. They see how the receivers start running their routes with extra crispness. How the offensive line digs in a little deeper. How the sideline lights up when he takes off his helmet. They also see the disconnect. The way coaches deflect in interviews. The way media relations tiptoe around questions about the QB depth chart. The way Shedeur keeps being evaluated while the guy ahead of him throws another red zone pick. And you better believe players talk. Behind closed doors, they know who the leader is. They know who the locker room wants. You think this hasn't caused friction? There's division now. Unspoken lines being drawn between players who believe in the kid and others still hanging onto the coach's plan. One source even said some veterans are getting frustrated, not at Shedeur, but at the indecision. Either start him or stop acting like he's not the future, one anonymous player reportedly told a team staffer. You can't build a winning culture around hesitation. And right now, that's all this franchise is doing. Meanwhile, Andrew Berry is walking a tightrope. He knows every time Shedeur balls out, even in practice, it's ammo. It's validation. It's one more notch in the "I told you so" column. But he also knows that every misstep from Shedeur, it could be the one Haslam uses to pull the trigger. Imagine that pressure. You bet on a player the entire building didn't want. You watch him come in and light it up. And now you're stuck waiting, hoping the politics don't swallow him before the scoreboard can prove you right. Because that's the sad part. This isn't about football anymore. This is about optics. It's about whether a billionaire owner can admit he was wrong, and whether a general manager can survive long enough to say, "I told you so" on the record. But here's the wrinkle. Haslam wants to win. Desperately. He wants to be the owner who finally brings relevance back to Cleveland. But does he want it enough to swallow his pride? Because every week that Shedeur sits, the noise grows louder. The chants start earlier. The fans get angrier. And the brand? It's already moved on. Nike's rolling out new Shedeur content. The media is all in, and national talk shows are asking, why is Cleveland wasting this kid? You can only ignore the obvious for so long before it starts making you look bad. Now, there's a rumor swirling, totally unconfirmed, but juicy as hell, that Shedeur was approached by members of the Rams front office. No tampering, no illegal talks. Just the classic, if things don't work out in Cleveland vibe. Friendly conversations. Subtle nods. And that should terrify Cleveland. Because if Berry goes, and if Haslam doubles down and keeps Shedeur buried behind mediocrity and pride, there's a very real possibility that Shedeur could walk. And if that happens, it's a wrap. Not just for Berry's career, but for Haslam's reputation as an NFL owner. You don't recover from fumbling a star quarterback because your feelings got hurt during draft weekend. And you know what makes it worse? Shedeur's not asking for any of this. He hasn't called out the team. He hasn't thrown his teammates under the bus. He hasn't even made a cryptic Instagram post. And in 2025, that's basically a signed ceasefire agreement. He's done what rookies are supposed to do: work hard, stay locked in, deliver when asked. And somehow, that's made this even harder for the Browns to deal with. Because they can't spin him as a distraction. He hasn't given them anything to spin. All he's done is ball out. And now the ball is in the Browns' court. Do they take the L and start the guy everyone knows is the future? Or do they keep playing this political game and risk not only losing their fan base, but their locker room? And the GM who might have just pulled off one of the greatest fifth-round steals in NFL history? Because let's be real, this story doesn't end quietly. This isn't just some quarterback controversy. It's a franchise-defining moment. Years from now, people are going to look back and say, that's when everything changed. Either Cleveland becomes the team that took a chance on primetime Sun and rode him all the way to relevance, or they become the cautionary tale. The team that drafted the future and buried it. For now, all eyes are on Haslam, on Berry, on Shedeur. 3 men, 1 team, and a decision that will echo through NFL history. Let's talk about something we haven't dug into yet: recruitment regret. Because behind the headlines and front office backstabbing, there's a quieter storyline bubbling just under the surface. The teams who passed on Shedeur Sanders are kicking themselves right now. Quietly. Privately, but hard. Executives around the league are starting to whisper what nobody wanted to admit on draft night. We missed. GMs who dismissed him as just another social media-flavored legacy kid are now watching every throw from the sideline like it's film day before the Super Bowl. They're watching his poise, his reads, his leadership, and they're wondering how they let him fall to the 5th round. Let's be honest, he had every reason to be drafted higher. Power 5 performance, elite football IQ, a Heisman-level year at Colorado, and the mental toughness of someone who's had cameras in his face since middle school. The tape was there. The pedigree was there. The stage presence? Practically built in. But because he wasn't conventionally packaged, because he flexed and wore jewelry and didn't sound like the classic robotic yes, coach, QB prototype, teams hesitated. They saw noise, not value. And Cleveland? They only bit because Andrew Berry couldn't shake the gut feeling that everyone else was dead wrong. And now that feeling is turning into fact. But that creates a new problem for the Browns. Because when a draft pick starts making other GMs jealous, the pressure doesn't just come from inside the locker room. It starts coming from the outside too. Sponsors start calling. Agents start circling. TV networks want him on camera, not tucked away at QB4. And for a franchise like Cleveland, which is desperate for national relevance, you'd think they'd embrace the Shedeur wave like a gift from the football gods. But no. Instead, there's this weird tension in the air, like the team isn't sure whether to promote him or contain him. Take the media days, for example. Every time reporters ask to speak with Shedeur, someone in PR subtly redirects. Let's talk to Dylan today, they say. Or, Shedeur's getting treatment. Or the always vague, we're limiting rookie media access. It's like they're afraid to let him speak his mind. Afraid he'll say something too authentic, too real. But that's the irony. Shedeur doesn't need to say a word. He just exists, and the internet lights up. That's the power of cultural gravity. He's not just a quarterback, he's a walking storyline. And Cleveland, instead of riding the wave, keeps trying to unplug the ocean. Let's also talk about Deion. Because yeah, he may not be wearing orange and brown on Sundays, but his presence looms large in all of this. Say what you want about primetime, but he's the rare kind of father-coach hybrid who can pick up the phone and change the temperature in the room. Word is he's been extremely hands-off with Shedeur since the draft, respecting the process, letting his son grow into his own man at the professional level. But if this thing goes south, if Shedeur continues to be sidelined while lesser QBs eat up snaps, you can bet Deion's going to speak up. And when he does, you won't need a press release to feel the impact. One Instagram post, one tweet, one mic drop soundbite on a podcast, and the NFL news cycle shifts instantly. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't ask for attention. He summons it. So here's Cleveland, trying to contain a star they can't box in, under the shadow of a father who redefined charisma in sports, with the clock ticking louder every day. Now, let's look at the locker room from a new angle. The young core. Guys who were just drafted. Second-year players trying to prove themselves. For them, Shedeur is more than a quarterback. He's a symbol of what this generation of players really values. They don't just want a QB who manages the game. They want someone who commands energy, who's on their level, who plays with swagger but knows when to lock in. And Shedeur? He fits that mold perfectly. The veterans might still be on the fence, leaning on that respect the hierarchy mindset. But the rookies? They're already behind him. They're reposting his highlights, wearing his merch, mirroring his confidence. And once that divide starts, it's only a matter of time before it cracks the locker room open. Here's a storyline no one's focused on yet. How this affects team morale. Because the longer Shedeur waits in the wings while the Browns stumble on offense, the more frustrated the team becomes. Coaches might not say it out loud, but players will. In private, in the group chats, in the weight room. It starts small. Why isn't he getting more reps? Dude could have won us that game. We're really doing this Dylan thing again. And suddenly, you've got a split. One group is riding with the system. The other is waiting for it to fail, so their guy gets his shot. That kind of tension? It can't stay hidden forever. Let's not forget the fans. Oh, the fans. Cleveland's had their hearts broken so many times, they've practically got emotional calluses. But this time, they see something different. This isn't another overhyped first-rounder. This is a dude they feel. Someone with charisma, clutch, and cool under pressure. And when the fans start chanting your name before you're even QB2, that's not momentum. That's a movement. And that movement is gaining speed. Every practice clip, every preseason scramble, every mic'd up moment, it's snowballing. So when the regular season hits and the Browns' offense sputters, you already know what's coming. Boo, birds for Dylan. Roars for Shedeur. And if Haslam still won't budge, that's when the walls close in. You can't bench a phenomenon forever, not without consequences. Because eventually, the team will revolt. The fans will rebel. And the league? The league will watch and wonder how a franchise with the answer already on the roster managed to screw it up. So now we wait. Not for Shedeur to be ready. He already is. But for Cleveland to catch up. Because at this point, it's not about protecting the rookie. It's about saving the season, saving the locker room, maybe even saving the GM's job. The only thing left to ask is, will pride ruin potential? Or will the Browns finally stop overthinking and do the one thing everyone's already screaming for? Start the kid. Let him play. And let the story write itself. Let's not sugarcoat it. The Browns are on borrowed time with this one. The Shedeur Sanders decision isn't just a roster move anymore. It's a litmus test for whether this franchise actually wants to evolve, or if they're more comfortable sinking in the same muddy waters they've waded through for 2 decades. Because every day they keep Shedeur on the bench, they're not just ignoring a quarterback, they're ignoring a moment. And in today's NFL, moments are everything. They move markets. They define eras. They flip franchises overnight. You think it's a coincidence that Nike doubled down before Cleveland did? Please. Nike saw it before anyone else. This isn't just a good quarterback prospect. This is a generational brand. And when you have that rare combo of on-field IQ and off-field magnetism, you don't wait. You build around it. Yet here we are, watching Dillon Gabriel throw checkdowns while Shedeur throws darts in practice. Watching fans shout, "Let 5 cook," from the stands while the coaching staff stays glued to some outdated meritocracy chart. And the wildest part? Shedeur's not complaining. He's not tweeting cryptic emojis or giving post-practice side-eye to the cameras. He shows up, does the work, takes the high road. And somehow that is threatening. Because if he acted out, the team could label him a diva, a distraction, just another flashy rookie with a famous dad. But he's not giving them that out. He's just balling, quietly, relentlessly. Which brings us back to the front office. There's something deeply insecure happening here. A kind of fear that if they do hand him the reins, it'll prove what everyone already knows. Andrew Berry was right. Jimmy Haslam was wrong. And the Browns' internal politics nearly sabotaged the biggest gift they've had since Myles Garrett fell into their lap. So what are they waiting for? A perfect loss? A Gabriel implosion, so obvious that it leaves them no choice? A halftime chant so loud that the cameras can't ignore it? The longer they delay, the more it becomes clear. This isn't a football problem. This is a control problem. And if the Browns don't figure it out fast, they're going to watch a 5th-round steal turn into the one who got away. Because here's the truth. You can't hold back momentum. You can't silence charisma. And you definitely can't keep Shedeur Sanders off the field forever. Not when the league, the fans, and half your own locker room know exactly what he's capable of. TikTok, Cleveland.